The moonstone ring slipped from her finger more easily than she expected. Sonara held it up to the lantern light one last time, watching the pale gem catch fire in its silver setting. 3 years she had worn it. 3 years of believing that a girl with no family name and no pack standing could still be chosen by the most powerful wolf in the hollow reaches. 3 years of secret meetings in the apothecary garden, of whispered promises beneath the willow trees, of his mouth at her throat swearing she was the only one he would ever want beside him. She set the ring on the writing desk between them. Across the chamber, Marrow Keep groaned in the wind. Snow battered the leaded glass. Below, in the great courtyard, the engagement banquet had emptied 2 hours ago, and the last of the noble guests had retreated to their guest wings, drunk on plum wine and rumor. Vile did not look at the ring. He stood at the hearth with his back to her, one hand braced against the carved mantel, the other curled into a fist at his side. The firelight rendered him in copper and shadow, the broad sweep of his shoulders, the dark hair he had let grow long this winter, the silver chain of office she had clasped around his neck on the night he became Alpha King of the 4 allied packs. He had not turned to face her since she had begun to speak. "Did you hear me?" she said quietly. It was not a question. "I heard you." "Then say something." He did not. Sonara pressed her palm flat against the desk to keep her hand from trembling. She had rehearsed this. She had walked the long corridor from her chamber to his, repeating the words in her head until they felt almost bearable. "I am breaking the engagement. You are free. I am leaving Marrow Keep before dawn. Do not look for me." What she had not rehearsed was the silence afterward. "I saw the message," she said. Her voice was steady. She was proud of that. "On your desk. Yesterday morning, when I came to bring you the tincture for your shoulder. I did not mean to read it. The seal was already broken." His shoulders moved once, sharply. A breath drawn and held. "It was from your council?" she went on. "From all 4 of them. Every alpha of every allied pack. They have set you a choice. Take a noble bride from one of the ruling houses by the spring equinox, or they will withdraw their warriors from your borders. They named 4 candidates. They named the dowries. They named the alliances each match would secure." She swallowed. "They did not name me." He turned then. She had been waiting for it, bracing for it. But the look on his face was not what she had imagined, not anger, not pity, not even surprise. It was something colder, something carefully assembled. "Sonara." His voice was low, controlled. "You should not have read that. I know. It does not mean what you think. It means," she said, and her voice cracked once and then steadied, "that the woman you promised to marry will cost you 4 armies. It means that every wolf who follows you will pay for me in blood when the southern raids come this summer. It means that I am the price of your kingdom, and I am not going to let you pay it. That is not your decision. It is exactly my decision." She took a step back from the desk. From him. From the ring. "The engagement was mine to give. It is mine to take back." A muscle leapt in his jaw. His amber eyes had gone very still, the way they did before a storm broke. She had seen that stillness in council chambers and on battle plains. She had never seen it turned on her. "You will not leave this keep tonight," he said. "I will." "Sonara. Do not." She held up one hand. The mark beneath her left collarbone, the secret claiming bite he had given her on the longest night of last winter, flared with sudden heat. She ignored it. "Do not say my name like that. Do not look at me like that. I am giving you a clean way out. Take it. Marry the high water girl or the bright water girl or whichever one of them brings you the most spears. Be the king your people need, and let me go." For a long moment he did not move. Then, very slowly, he crossed the room to her. He did not touch her. He stopped just close enough that she could feel the warmth of him through the thin wool of her dress. close enough that she could smell the wood smoke and crushed pine that had clung to him since the first night they met, the scent that meant home in a way no place ever had. "Listen to me," he said. His voice was different now, stripped of its alpha command, lower, rougher, the voice he used in the dark, in the garden, against her hair. "I have not given them my answer. I will not give them the answer they want. There is a way through this. I have been working on it for a month. Give me until the equinox and I will show you." "Until the equinox," she whispered. "Trust me." She looked up at him, at the man whose hands had trembled when he first touched her face, at the king whose people would die for him in the snow this summer if she stayed, at the wolf whose counsel had counted her worth in withdrawn armies and found her wanting. "I do trust you," she said. His shoulders eased. "That is the worst part of this," she said. She turned away before he could answer. Her cloak was already on the chair by the door. The small leather satchel she had packed 3 nights ago, when she had first read the message and known what she had to do, was hidden beneath it. She lifted both in one practiced motion. "Senara." She did not stop. "Senara, do not do this. Whatever you think that letter said, you are wrong about what it means. Stop. Look at me. Look at me." The alpha command struck her between the shoulder blades. She felt it ripple through the half-formed bond like a hand closing around her spine. Any other wolf in the keep would have been on their knees. She felt her own knees buckle, felt her wolf. The small, uncertain thing that had only begun to wake in her since his bite. Whimper, and try to obey. She set her teeth and kept walking. His sharp intake of breath behind her was the only sign that he understood what had just happened. That she had refused him. That whatever bond he had begun on the longest night had not finished forming, and she was walking away before it could. She closed the chamber door behind her without looking back. The corridor was empty. The torches had burned down to embers. Senara walked with her hand pressed flat against the mark beneath her collarbone, where the heat had gone from a flare to a slow, hard burn, and she did not let herself cry until she had reached the servant's stair. Then she ran. The kitchen door, the herb garden, the broken stretch of curtain wall behind the stables where she had slipped out 100 nights to meet him. The black gelding she had bargained for last week stood saddled in the trees beyond, breath steaming, tied where she had left him at moonrise. She rode west into the storm with her face turned away from Marrow Keep. She did not look back when she heard the howl. It came from the high tower, raw and broken and unending, a sound she had never heard him make before. It meant he had gone to the desk, after she left, and found the second letter she had hidden beneath the ring. The one she had written 3 nights ago, and could not bring herself to leave him. The one that began there is something you do not know about me, something I should have told you weeks ago. She had decided, in the end, to take that secret with her. Behind her, the howl rose into the snow and did not fall. She rode harder. By the time the keep's bells began to ring, calling every wolf within 10 leagues to muster in the courtyard, Senara had crossed the river and was already gone. She did not see Vial find the small, dark stain of blood she had left on the writing desk, where the unfinished mark beneath her collarbone had broken open as she walked away. She did not see him press his fingers to it and whisper a name no one else heard. And she did not know that the letter she thought she had taken with her was still on the desk, fallen open beneath the ring, where he would read it within the hour. 4 months later, the salt fishing village of Coldreach had stopped asking questions about the woman in the cliffside cottage. Senara was called Wren now. She had taken the name from a bird that had landed on her windowsill the morning the headwoman had asked her at the door, half frozen and visibly with child, what to call her. She was glad of it, because Wren was a small word and it suited the small life she had built. She traded herb work for firewood and salt fish. She set the broken arm of the cooper's boy when he fell from the rocks. She sat with the old weaver through 3 nights of fever and brought her back from the edge. By the 2nd month she had a place at the long table on solstice night, and the children no longer ran from her when she walked the cliff path. No one in Coldreach asked where she had come from. No one asked why a woman of her bearing knew how to dose wolfsbane down to the grain, or why she startled at the sound of howls in the dark, or why she sometimes pressed her hand to her collarbone as though pressing on an old wound. Coldreach had its own sorrows. It did not borrow others. The child inside her had begun to move in the 3rd month. Not the gentle flutters the midwife had described. Something stronger. Something that woke her in the deep hours, kicking against her ribs from the inside as though it remembered being free. Sometimes the kicks came in pairs, 2 small heels against 2 different sides of her belly, and Sonara would lie awake in the dark with her hands on her stomach and try not to count what that meant. Wolves bred true. Wolves of royal blood bred truer. She did not let herself think of the father. She tried, at least. The mark beneath her collarbone had not faded. By every law of wolf kind she had ever heard, a broken claim should have closed and gone to flat scar within a moon. Hers had not. It had darkened. It pulsed when the wind came from the east. Some nights it woke her with a bright, clean burn that felt almost like a hand pressed against her skin from the other side of the world. She told herself it was infection. She told herself it was guilt. She did not tell herself the truth, which was that she could feel him. It was not constant. It came in waves. A great pressure, searching and then receding. A grief so vast she sometimes had to sit down on the cliff path and breathe through it because it was not hers, and it would not let her go. A name spoken over and over against her sternum in the small hours. Sonara, 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 until she would press her face into her pillow and weep without knowing whose tears she was crying. She thought sometimes that she was losing her mind. She hoped, sometimes, that she was. It was easier than the alternative. The girl arrived on the morning of the spring market. Sonara was at the long table outside the headwoman's hall, weighing dried sea thistle for the winter stores, when she heard the rider come up the cliff road. She did not look up at first. Riders came to Coldreach now and again. Salt buyers from the inland towns mostly. Pilgrims to the old shrine on the headland. Then she heard the voice, and she went very still. "I am told there is a healer here." The voice was young, out of breath. "An herb woman. They said she helps strangers." "That depends on the stranger," the head woman said. "Get down off that horse, child, before you fall off." Sonara raised her eyes. The girl on the horse could not have been more than 15. She was wrapped in a riding cloak too large for her, and beneath it Sonara could see the bright silver pin of a noble messenger and the narrow gold cuff at her wrist that meant she rode under the protection of a ruling house. The girl's eyes found Sonara across the courtyard. They were wide and very pale and very afraid. "Please," the girl said. "Please, you have to come." Sonara set down the measure. Her heart had begun to beat in a slow, strange rhythm. "Come where?" "My mistress." The girl swung down off the horse and her legs nearly buckled. The head woman caught her by the elbow. "She was poisoned. A week ago. She is dying. The court physician cannot help her. She told me, before she went into the fever, she told me to find the herb woman in Coldreach. She said you would know what to do. She said..." The girl stopped. Her chin trembled. "Who is your mistress?" Sonara said quietly. The girl looked at the ground. "Lady Ostrani of House Karen," she whispered. "First counselor to the Alpha King." The world tilted. Sonara put her hand on the table to keep it steady. House Karan. Ostrani Karan. The woman who had signed the council letter. The woman who had, by every measure of pack politics, been the loudest voice telling Vale to set Sonara aside and take a noble bride before the equinox. The woman who had been poisoned a week ago. The woman who, dying, had sent a messenger to find her. "Why me?" Sonara managed. The girl reached into her cloak. The folded paper she drew out was blood-stained at one corner. "She said to give you this. She said you would understand." Sonara took the paper with fingers that had gone numb. The seal was broken. The handwriting on the inside was unsteady, as though the writer had been pushing through pain to set down the words. But Sonara recognized it at once. She had seen it on 100 council orders, on a dozen summons, on the letter that had ended her life 4 months ago. The letter inside contained only 3 lines. The wine was meant for him. I drank it by mistake. I have been wrong about you. Come quickly, child. There is no one else who can help me, and there is no one else who can save him. Sonara stopped breathing. Save him, she whispered. My lady? What do you mean, save him? Her voice rose. The head woman was staring at her. The girl was staring at her. She did not care. What does she mean, save him? What has happened to him? I do not know what was in the letter, the girl said miserably. I was only told to bring you. But the king, he is not well, my lady. He has not been well since the snow broke. They say he is hunting in the mountains and will not come back. They say he howls all night. They say his wolf has begun to take him, and not give him back. The mark beneath Sonara's collarbone flared so suddenly and so hotly that she gasped and caught at her own throat. She had felt it before, this far-away searching, this distant ache. But this was different. This was bright. This was close. This was a hand, pressed flat against the inside of her chest, hard enough to bruise. He was looking for her right now. He had been looking for her every moment since she had walked away. And he was running out of time. Sonara folded the blood-stained letter slowly, very slowly, and put it inside her dress against her skin. How long have you been riding? She asked the girl. 4 days. I was told to find you and to be quick about it. Then we have a little time. She turned to the head woman. I am going to need a horse, and the small green satchel from the cottage, and someone to mind my goat for a week. I will be back when I can. The head woman looked at her for a long moment. Ren, she said. Yes. That is not your name, is it? No, Sonara said softly. It was never my name. The head woman nodded once. She had been the head woman of a salt village on a hard coast for 40 winters, and there were many things she did not need to be told twice. Take the gray mare, she said, and come back to us when you can, child. Whoever you are. Sonara rode out of Coldreach an hour before noon, the messenger girl at her side, the mark beneath her collarbone burning steadily now, in a way it had not burned in 4 months. She rode toward the woman who had tried to take everything from her, who had drunk her own poison by accident, and who was now the only person in the world who could tell her what had truly happened in those last days at Marrow Keep. The road climbed. The sea fell away behind them. The wind off the cliffs smelled of pine and salt and, faintly, of something else. Smoke. Sonara was the first to see it. She drew the gray mare up short on the crest of the ridge and stood in the stirrups and looked down into the valley they had been about to ride through. The way station at the crossroads was burning. The thatch was already gone. The stable doors hung open. There were shapes in the snow around the courtyard that she did not, at first, want to recognize as bodies. The messenger girl made a small choked sound. Stay behind me, Sonara said. Her voice had gone very flat. Do not get down off your horse. Do you understand me? Stay on that horse. Yes, my lady. Sonara rode forward. She had nearly reached the burned way station when the first wolf stepped out of the trees. It was not a wolf of the hollow reaches. She knew the colors of every allied pack, and this was none of them. Its coat was dark gray streaked with rust, its eyes a flat yellow, its frame lean and long and built for running prey to ground. 2 more came out of the tree line behind it, then a 4th, then a 5th. They had been waiting. For her. The lead wolf opened its jaws and made a sound that was not a growl. It was almost a laugh. Sonara's hand went to the small silver knife at her belt, the one she had taken from Marrow Keep on the last night, because she could not bear to leave with nothing of his, and she understood 3 things at once: the poisoned wine, the dying counselor, the messenger sent to fetch her on a 4-day ride alone. It had not been a rescue. It had been a baited hook. And she had ridden onto it with her child in her belly, and her wolf still half-formed inside her chest. Behind her, the messenger girl began, very softly, to laugh. Sonara turned her head a finger's width, just enough to see the girl in the corner of her eye. The bright, pale young face, the wide, afraid eyes that were no longer afraid at all. The smile that had bloomed slowly across the girl's mouth, soft and patient, like someone who had finally been told she could stop pretending. "You poor thing," the girl said. "Did you really think she sent for you?" "Move," Sonara said. "Did you really think anyone in that keep ever wanted you saved? Move. There is nowhere to go." The girl's voice had changed. It was older now, smoother. The voice of someone who had been pretending to be 15 for a long time and was tired of it. "The road ahead is held. The road behind is held. Every village within a day's ride has been told to refuse you. We have been waiting for you to leave the cliffs for a very long time, my lady. You should not have made it so easy." The lead wolf in the courtyard took one slow step forward. Sonara's mind moved very fast. The trees on her left fell away into a gully too steep for the gray mare. The road behind her, the girl was right, would be held. The road ahead led down into the burning way station and the 4 wolves waiting in its yard. But beyond the way station, on the far slope, the road forked east into the high pines and the long stone road that, eventually, ran all the way to Marrow Keep. If she could reach the fork. If the gray mare had it in her. If the child in her belly held. 3 ifs. She would take 3 ifs. She drove her heels into the gray mare's flanks and shouted. The mare bolted forward. Not toward the way station. Down. Off the road. Into the gully Sonara had told herself was too steep, because the steepness was the point, because no wolf bred for chasing was built for plunging downhill through scree and broken pine. The gray mare went down the slope on her haunches in a roar of stones. Behind her, the messenger girl screamed an order. Behind her, wolves howled and gave chase. Sonara did not look back. She bent low over the mare's neck and gripped with her thighs, and the gray mare, half mad with terror and fully magnificent, took her down the gully and across the frozen creek at the bottom and up the far side in 3 lunging bounds that nearly broke them both. A crossbow bolt buried itself in the pine 3 handspans from her face. She wrenched the mare hard right. Another bolt. This one sang past her ear and struck the saddle leather and stuck there, vibrating, black-fletched. The fletching wrapped in something dark that Sonara did not need to look at twice to recognize. Wolf's bane. They were not trying to take her alive. The far slope steepened. The mare lunged. Sonara felt the child in her belly kick, hard, twice, and the mark beneath her collarbone, the mark she had spent 4 months trying to forget, opened. It was the only word for it, and through it came Vielle, not a memory, not a feeling. Him, all of him, pouring through the half-finished bond like a river finding its channel after a long drought, hot and overwhelming and so vast she nearly came off the saddle. "Where are you?" The voice was not in her ears. It was inside her skull, inside her sternum, inside the small, cold space where she had locked him away 4 months ago and told herself the lock would hold. "Where are you? Where are you? Sonara, talk to me. Where are you? Please." She could not answer with words. She did not know how, but she did not need to. The bond had opened both ways, and whatever she could feel of him, he could feel of her. She felt the moment he understood. She felt him register the gray mare under her, the wolves behind her, the bolt in the saddle, the wolf's bane on its tip. She felt him lose his mind. The roar that came back through the bond was not language. It was not even sound. It was a wave of something that hit her so hard she actually cried out, and the gray mare faltered beneath her, and then surged forward with a fresh burst of speed as though she had felt it too. "Hold on! came the voice through the bond. Steadier now, brutally steady. Hold on, I am coming. Hold on. Do not let them take you. Sonara, do not let them take you. I am coming. She crested the ridge. The fork in the road lay below her. She took the east. The mare's flanks were lathered. Behind her, the wolves had reached the gully and were already across it, spreading out through the pines on both sides of her, working to flank. A new sound rose behind her. Not howling. Hooves. The messenger girl had brought riders. Sonara reached down for the silver knife at her belt and drew it. The first wolf broke from the pines on her left and lunged for the mare's hindquarters. She slashed sideways, blind, and felt the blade catch. The wolf yelped and fell back. The second came in from the right. She wrenched the mare around. The blade caught again, this time across the muzzle, and the wolf turned away snarling. But the third was already coming, and she was tiring, and the mare was tiring, and the path ahead was narrowing, and she knew, with a clarity she had not felt in 4 months, that she was not going to make it. The bond pulsed. One more turn, Viel's voice said inside her chest. One more turn, and then you stop. Do you hear me? You stop. She turned anyway. She had stopped thinking. She was running on the bond now, the way a drowning swimmer runs on the rope someone has thrown them. The path bent around a rock outcrop into a small clearing. Sonara hauled the gray mare up so hard the animal nearly went over backward. She slid from the saddle, knife in one hand, the other arm wrapped under her belly, and she turned to face the wolves coming up the path behind her. There were 6 of them now. The riders behind that. And then the trees on the far side of the clearing exploded. Something came through them that was not a wolf. Or not only a wolf. It was too large. The pines did not bend for it. They broke. It hit the clearing in a single bound that crossed 30 feet of frozen ground, and it landed between Sonara and the pursuit. And it turned, and its eyes were not amber. They were gold. Molten gold. The color of something that had spent 4 months in a furnace and was no longer quite the same thing it had been when it went in. The first hunting wolf reached the clearing. The thing that had been veiled did not move toward it. It opened its jaws and made a sound that was lower than a growl and older than language, and the hunting wolf stopped, as though it had run into a wall, and then began, very slowly, to back away. The other wolves were still coming. The thing that had been vile went to meet them. Sonara did not see what happened next. She had fallen to her knees in the snow with her arms around her belly and her face turned away. She heard wolves cry out. She heard wolves stop crying out. She heard a man's voice somewhere, perhaps the messenger girl's father, perhaps her handler, screaming orders that nobody alive was left to follow. Then she heard hooves. Going away. Then nothing. Then she heard a soft exhale, very close, and a great warm weight settled against her back, and she felt the press of a wide muzzle against the nape of her neck, and she felt him breathe her in as though he had been starving for the smell of her for 4 months and had only just remembered what air was for. She did not turn around. She could not. She put her hand back, blind, into the thick blood-matted fur at his throat, and she felt him shudder once against her, all the way through his enormous body, and then go still. "Fail," she whispered. The shift when it came was almost gentle. She felt fur become skin under her palm. She felt the great body behind her become a man's body, on his knees, his arms coming around her from behind, his face pressed into her hair, his breath ragged and hot against the back of her neck. He did not speak. He was crying. She could feel it through the bond before she could feel it on her skin. The grief of him, the relief of him, the 4 months of him. It came through the open mark beneath her collarbone in a flood that left her gasping, and somewhere in the middle of it, somewhere in the storm of his unguarded mind, she found the thing he had been hiding. She found what was in the second letter, the one she had left on his desk, the one he had read. The one that had begun there is something you do not know about me, and ended, "I am carrying your child." And I am taking that secret with me, because I cannot bear to be the reason you lose your kingdom." He had read it. He had read it within the hour. And what came back to her now through the bond, raw and unguarded, and not meant for her to see this clearly, was not anger, and not betrayal, and not even grief. It was a single thought, repeated over 4 months without stopping, in a voice she barely recognized as his. "I am coming for both of you. I am coming for both of you. I am coming for both of you." Sonara turned her face into his shoulder and finally, after 4 months, broke. She did not know how long they stayed there. The snow soaked through her skirts. The cold had gone past her bones into the marrow of them. Vale had not moved. His arms were locked around her from behind, and his face was still pressed into her hair, and he was breathing in long, uneven shudders that she could feel all the way through her shoulder blades. "You need to put on a cloak," she said finally. He laughed. It was a wet, broken sound. "I have not thought about cloaks in a long time," he said. "You will freeze." "I will not." She turned in his arms until she was facing him, and for the first time in 4 months, she looked at his face. It was not his face. It was, and it was not. The bones were the same. The dark hair, the hard jaw, and the small scar at the edge of his mouth she had once kissed on a summer night in the apothecary garden. But the man she had walked away from at Marrow Keep had been a king. The man kneeling in front of her now was something hollowed out. His cheekbones stood too sharply. His eyes were rimmed dark. There was a tremor in his hands that she did not remember. "What did they do to you?" she whispered. "Not them." His voice was rough. "You." She flinched. He caught her face in both his hands at once. "No. That came out wrong. I did this. I let you walk out of that room. You begged me to release you and I tried to command you instead, and I will pay for that for the rest of my life." "You read the letter," she said. It was not a question. His eyes closed. "Yes." "How long after I left?" "Less than an hour." "And you came after me?" "I have been coming after you for 4 months." He opened his eyes. They were wet. "I have not stopped. I have not slept. I have ridden every road in the Reaches twice. I had men in every port and every pass. 3 weeks ago, I crossed the border into Karan lands without permission and tore the southern garrison apart with my hands because I thought one of their captains had seen you. He had not. I am told I nearly killed him. I do not remember it." He let out a broken breath. "My beta has been ruling in my place. The council has been calling for my abdication. I have not cared about anything since the morning I read what you wrote, and understood that I had let you walk out of that keep alone and pregnant in the middle of a winter storm because I was too proud to tell you the truth." "What truth?" "That the council had ordered me to set you aside, that I had refused, that I had spent the month before our engagement banquet drafting an alliance that would replace the 4 armies they were threatening to withdraw, so that I would never have to choose between my crown and you, that I had it almost finished, that I was going to bring it to you on the morning after the banquet, and lay it in your lap and tell you to marry me anyway, because I had found a way." She could not breathe. "You did not tell me," she said. "I wanted to surprise you." "Vale." "I know." His thumb moved across her cheek. "There are no words bad enough for what I did. I let you read that letter on my desk, and I did not come after you that day because I thought I had 2 more weeks. I was so certain I could fix it before you ever needed to know how close it had come. I was wrong. About everything." His voice cracked. "I have loved you for 3 years, and I did not know you well enough to understand that you would always walk away if you thought it would save me. That is on me, Sonara. That is mine." A small sound escaped her throat. She had spent 4 months building a wall around the part of her chest where this conversation lived. Brick by brick, night by night, in a cottage by the sea. The wall came down all at once. She did not decide to lean forward. She simply was leaning forward. And then her forehead was against his, And then his arms were around her again, and she was crying into his neck, with 4 months of held weeping coming out of her in a single raw flood that shook her from the soles of her feet upward. He held her through it. He pressed his mouth against her temple and said her name, over and over, the way he had been saying it through the bond for 4 months without knowing she could hear. "I felt you," she said, when she could speak again. "Every night." I told myself I was imagining it. "You were not. I called you. I called you so many times, I thought I would lose what was left of my mind." She lifted her face. "You almost did," she said quietly. "The girl said you have been hunting in the mountains, that your wolf was beginning to take you and not give you back." A muscle moved in his jaw. "It would have," he said, "if I had not found you tonight. I do not think I had another moon in me." She laid her hand flat against his chest. His heartbeat was very fast and very strong and uneven, the heartbeat of a man who had been running for a long time on something that was not quite life. "Vale?" "Yes." "Who poisoned the wine?" He was very still. "Tell me," she said. "It was not Ostrena." His voice had gone careful, the way it went when he was choosing each word. "Ostrena sent the council letter, yes. She wanted me to take a noble bride. But she did not want me dead. She wanted me governable. The wine was someone else." "Who?" "That is what I am here to find out." He paused. "And it is what they were trying to keep me from finding out by getting to you first." Cold went through her. "The girl," she whispered. "The messenger. I do not know who sent her. Yet. But I will know before this is over." He looked at her, and his eyes were no longer wet. "Senara, listen to me. There is a faction inside my own keep. I do not yet know how deep it goes. Ostrena began to suspect it 3 weeks ago, and that is when she was poisoned. The wine that was meant for me at the engagement banquet was almost certainly the same brew that put her in her sickbed, and she is the only one who can name the people who arranged it. She sent for you because she does not trust her own household healers anymore. She believed correctly that you would not refuse a dying woman. The messenger she sent was not clean. How did you find me, then?" "The bond." He pressed his hand over hers where it lay on his chest. "It opened the moment they fired the first bolt at you. It was as though something in you finally let me in. I was 3 valleys away, and I knew where you were, as surely as I know my own name." The mark beneath her collarbone pulsed gently in confirmation. "You did not finish the bond that night," she said. "On the longest night." "No." "Why?" "Because to finish a true bond, both wolves must want it freely, with full knowledge. And you did not yet know what you were marrying. You did not know what the council would demand of me. I wanted you to choose me with your eyes open." She closed her eyes. "You impossible man." "I know." She put her arms around his neck and pulled him in and pressed her mouth to his. It was not gentle. It was not careful. 4 months of grief had made her something she had not been before. And she kissed him the way a woman kisses someone she has already mourned. He made a sound against her mouth that was almost a sob, and the bond opened wider. What poured through it was not desire. Not yet. It was relief. His and hers, indistinguishable, mingling and overflowing the seam where they had been sundered. She felt his wolf for the first time clearly. A vast, tired creature that had been pacing a cage for 4 months, sit down inside him and finally rest. She felt her own small, uncertain wolf raise its head. She felt the children in her belly stir, both of them at once, as though they had heard their father's voice for the first time and recognized it. She gasped against his mouth. He pulled back. His eyes had gone very wide. "Senara," he whispered. "Yes." "Was that?" "Yes." "There are 2 of them." "Yes." He pressed his forehead against hers and laughed. It was the first time she had heard him laugh in 4 months, and the sound went through her like sun. "Of course there are," he said. "Of course there are 2." Vale. Yes. My heart. We have to ride. He went still. How long do we have? He said. The girl screamed orders to riders before the wolves came at me. The wolves are dead, but the riders are not. They will report back. Whoever sent that girl will know within a day that the trap failed. They will move on Ostren before she can speak. And when they cannot kill her, they will move on the keep itself. Then we ride, he said. He stood and pulled her up with him, and his arm came around her waist as though he had decided in that moment never to release it again. We ride, and I take you somewhere safe, and then I go back to my keep, and I find the wolf who poisoned my counselor and I make him answer for it. No, she said. He looked at her. Not somewhere safe. We go to Ostrane first. Together. She will speak to me where she will not speak to your beta. I am the one she sent for. I am the one who can keep her alive long enough to name the people who did this. If we lose her, the conspiracy goes on, and we will be running for the rest of our lives. Sinara, you are pregnant, with twins, by a wolf who has not slept in 4 months. You will not ride into the heart of the people who just tried to kill you. I will. I cannot, he said. His voice broke on it. I cannot lose you again. She put her hand against his cheek. Then do not lose me. Stay with me. Do not let me out of your sight. Bring every wolf you trust. We do this together, or we lose everything. For a long time, he did not answer. Then, very slowly, he pressed her palm to his mouth. Together, he said. The mark beneath her collarbone pulsed once, hard. A long way off, on the other side of the ridge, a horn sounded. Then another, closer. Vile's head lifted. His eyes went gold. Mine, he said. Those are mine. My beta has caught up. The horns came again. 3 short blasts. A pause. 3 short blasts. His face changed. What? She said. That is not a riding signal, he said softly. That is a recall. Something has happened at the keep. The third set of horns came, 3 short, 1 long. Vile's hand tightened on her arm. Sinara, he said, we have to go, now, right now. They are calling me back because Marrow Keep is under attack. They rode through the night and into the white dawn. His beta met them at the second crossing, with 8 outriders and a string of fresh horses. The beta was a broad, black-bearded wolf called Oren Halloran, and Sinara knew him by reputation, the man who had held the eastern border alone for 2 summers when Vial was still a young alpha. He took one look at Sinara on the gray mare, and another at the king walking beside her with one hand on her saddle, and his face the color of ash, and he did not ask a single question. He swung down from his own horse, stripped his fur-lined cloak off his shoulders, and put it around her himself. My lady, he said. He did not bow. He did not have to. The cloak said it. Oren, Vale said. Tell me. It started at moonrise yesterday. Oren's voice was flat. He spoke as he handed her up onto the fresh horse, a tall bay with quiet eyes. A fire in the kitchens, then a fire in the south stable, then 4 of the gate guards down with cut throats from the inside. We held the inner keep, but we lost the outer ward. Whoever did it had been in our walls a long time. Lady Ostrena is still alive as of an hour ago. Barely. Her runner reached me at the 3rd crossing. Who is leading them? Vale said. That is the part I rode 3 horses to death to tell you. Oren's mouth thinned. Edrin. Vile went absolutely still. Say that again. Edrin is leading them. Sinara looked between them. Her hands had gone cold inside the cloak. Who is Edrin? She said quietly. It was Oren who answered. He did not look away from Vale's face. His brother, Oren said. Sinara closed her eyes. She had never met Edrin. She had heard him spoken of, twice, in 3 years. Vale's elder half-brother. Sent away to the southern abbeys at 16, on the day Vale had been confirmed as heir, because the council had feared a contested succession. Sinara had asked Vale about him once, on a summer evening in the apothecary garden, and Vial had told her, very briefly, that his brother was a good man who had been given a hard life and that he visited him at the abbey twice a year and brought him books. She had not asked again. She had understood, from the careful way Vale had spoken, that it was a wound. The abbey released him, Oren said. 3 months ago, without informing us. We have only just learned this. He has been in the reaches for the full of winter, my king. He has been moving among the council the entire time you have been hunting in the mountains. He has been telling them, very gently, that you are no longer fit to rule. That is why Ostren began to suspect, Vale said. His voice had gone very quiet. Yes. That is why they poisoned the wine at the engagement banquet. Yes. My own brother. Oren did not answer. There was no answer. Val turned his face away. He stood for a long time with one hand against the bay's flank and his shoulders rigid. Senara could feel, through the bond, the thing happening in his chest. The poisoning had been a wound. The kingdom in flames was a wound. But this was the wound under the wound, the one that had been there a long time, buried, scarred over, and now opened fresh. Vial, she said softly. He did not turn. She slid off the bay before Oren could stop her. She walked around to him. She put her hand on his back, between his shoulder blades, and she felt him take a long, uneven breath. He will not have you, she said. He will not have your kingdom. He will not have your throne. And he will not have me. Do you hear me? He will not have any of us. He turned and looked down at her. His eyes were wet again, but they had also gone hard. No, he said, he will not. He lifted her back onto the bay himself. His hand closed for a moment around her ankle, gentle, possessive, anchoring. Then he was on his own horse, and Oren was on his, and the 8 outriders formed up around them, and they rode for Marrow Keep. They reached the high pass at midday. From the pass, the keep was visible across the long valley. Senara had seen Marrow Keep 1,000 times. She had never seen it like this. The outer ward was burning in 3 places. The great banner above the gatehouse, which had carried Vial's Wolfen Crescent for 9 years, had been pulled down and replaced. The new banner was white. On it, in heavy black, was the shape of an open book. The Abbey sigil, Vial said softly. He has flown his old order's colors. He is telling the kingdom that he is the lawful heir. Is he? Senara said. Vial was quiet for a moment. Under the old laws, before the council reformed the succession, the eldest son inherited regardless of his mother's standing. Adrian is older than I am by 4 years. If those laws were restored, he would have the better claim. He is not stupid, Senara. He has been planning this since the day they sent him to that abbey. I went to visit him twice a year for 15 years, and I did not see it. You loved him, she said. Yes. That is not a failure. It is a failure tonight. A horn sounded from the keep. Then another. A rider broke from the gatehouse and came down the road toward them at a hard gallop, white flag of parley above his head. Oren's hand went to his sword. Hold, Vial said. The rider drew up at the foot of the pass and looked up at them. He was young, barely past his second shift, and Senara could see, even from this distance, that he was terrified. My king, he called up. I bear a message from the Lord Idrin. Then bear it, Vial said. He says, my king, that he holds the lower keep. He says he holds 83 of your household and your guard as guests under his protection. He says he holds the Lady Ostreni, who is not yet dead, but soon will be, and whose deathbed words he will allow you to hear if you come into the great hall alone, unarmed, before the next full bell. And if I do not? The young messenger swallowed. He says, my king, that he will hang Lady Ostren from the gatehouse at the next bell, and then the next 83 guests, 1 each bell, until you come. Val did not answer for a long moment. Then quietly, tell my brother that I will be at the gates within the hour. My king, Oren began. Tell him, Vial said. The messenger wheeled his horse and galloped back toward the keep. Vial turned to Orin. His face was perfectly calm. Take 6 of the outriders, he said. Circle south. Enter through the river postern. You will have to swim. The water gate has not been guarded in 20 years because no one believes a wolf will swim in winter. He has not been here long enough to remember. You will bring out Ostrene. Alive if you can. Her testimony if you cannot. Find Marta in the kitchens. She will know which quarter. Yes, my king. The remaining 2 outriders, and Sinara, will wait at the upper crossroads with the spare horses. If I do not return by sundown, they will ride for the eastern border and they will not look back. Vale, Sinara began. They will ride for the eastern border, he repeated, and they will not look back. Sinara, do you hear me? No, she said. He turned toward her. No, she said again. I am not going to the upper crossroads. I am not waiting at a safe distance for your sundown. If you walk through that gate alone, he will kill you within the hour and you know it. You said it yourself. He has been planning this for 15 years. Sinara. He does not know I am alive. Vale went still. He thinks I died in the snow 4 months ago, she said. Or he thinks I am still hiding. He does not know I have come back. He does not know what I am carrying. He does not know that the bond between us has opened. We can use that. I can use that. Send me in with you. As his guest. As his hostage. He will not refuse a chance to humiliate me publicly before he kills you. And once I am inside, I am inside. I can reach Ostreni. I can buy Orin time. I can stand in the hall and speak the one thing in this world your brother is not prepared to hear. What? Val said. She looked up at him. That his older brother is still loved, she said softly, by the wife he was sent away to make impossible. Val closed his eyes. Sinara. Yes. You are asking me to walk you into a hall where my brother intends to hang the woman who saved my life. I am asking you, she said, to trust me the way you wanted me to trust you. He did not answer for a long time. Then he opened his eyes, and they were gold. Together, he said. Together, she said. And below them, in the burning keep, the bell began to toll. The gate of Marrow Keep opened to admit them at the 7th stroke of the bell. Sinara walked through it on Vial's arm. She had insisted on that. Not behind him. Not led by guards. On his arm as a queen walks beside her king. She wore Orin's fur-lined cloak over the same plain wool dress she had ridden in, and her hand rested lightly in the crook of his elbow, and her belly, 4 months and unmistakable, was visible to every wolf in the courtyard the moment her cloak parted at the stairs. The intake of breath, when they saw her, ran through the courtyard like a wind. She heard her name said in a dozen mouths at once. Heard it carried up to the upper galleries, heard the silence that followed it. The shocked listening silence of a household that had been told for 4 months that the king's lover had died of grief in the storm, and was watching that lie walk in through the gate. Vale's hand came over hers. Now, he murmured. Now, she agreed. They climbed the stairs to the great hall together. The doors stood open. Edrin had wanted them open. He had wanted Vale to see, from the threshold, exactly what he had walked into. The hall was lined with armed men. A full third of the figures along the walls were human, hard-faced southerners in the dark robes of the abbey's lay militia. Idran had brought outsiders. He had brought witnesses. He had brought men who could not be commanded by an alpha's voice. At the foot of the dais, on a low cot, lay an old woman in a gray shift. Her face was the color of tallow. Her eyes were closed. Sinara saw the slow rise of her chest and knew, with a healer's certainty, that Lady Ostreni Karan had perhaps 3 hours of life left in her. On the dais itself, in the chair that had been Vial's, sat a man Sinara had never seen in person. He was thinner than Vial, paler, with the same dark hair gone prematurely silver at the temples. He held himself like a scholar, not a soldier. His robe was plain dark gray, his hands folded neatly in his lap, and when he saw Sonara on Vale's arm, he did not look surprised at all. He looked, very faintly, sad. "Brother," he said softly. "Edrin. You brought the girl. I brought my wife." A small ripple went through the hall. Edrin's eyes did not leave Sonara's face. "You were not married at the equinox," he said. "We are now. The bond is not finished. I can feel it from here." "It will be." Edrin inclined his head, as if accepting a small point of theology. "Sonara of no house," he said gently. "Welcome to the keep you walked away from." "Lord Edrin of the Southern Abbeys," she said. Her voice was steadier than she had expected. "I am sorry it has taken me 4 months to come and meet you." A flicker of something crossed his face, not anger, almost amusement. "You are braver than I was led to believe," he said. "I have had 4 months to think," she said, "about what I would say to the man who poisoned a counselor and burned a kitchen and took 83 of my husband's household hostage to draw him into a room. I have settled on a few things. Have you?" "Yes. I am all curiosity." She took her hand off Vale's arm. She walked, slowly, 3 paces forward. Vale did not stop her. She had told him on the high pass exactly what she was going to do, and he had agreed. And she felt him through the bond now, every breath, and every thread of his attention, the leashed and waiting weight of him at her back. She did not look at him. She could not afford to. She walked until she was standing over Lady Ostreni's cot. "May I?" she said, without looking up at Edrin. "May you what?" "Tend to her. She is dying." "I am aware." Edrin's head tilted slightly. "Why would I let you do that?" "Because you did not bring me into this hall to watch your only witness die in front of me," Sonara said, still without looking up. "You brought me into this hall because you have already decided how this scene is going to end, and you want me to be alive to see it. Lady Ostrene dying quietly while I stand here and do nothing weakens the scene. You are a careful man, my lord. You do not waste scenes." A long silence. "You are not what I was told," Edrin said, very softly. "Few of us are." "Tend to her, then." Briefly. Sonara knelt. She had been carrying the small green satchel inside her cloak the entire ride. She drew it out now. Her hands did not shake. She mixed ground silvercress, bitter mint distillate, and a pinch of the blue salt the head woman of Coldreach had given her on the morning she rode out, with 3 drops from her own water skin in the small horn cup she carried for emergencies. She lifted Ostren's head onto her knee. "My lady," she whispered, "drink this, slowly." The old woman's eyes opened a fraction. They focused on Sonara's face. Recognition came into them. Then, astonishingly, the ghost of a smile. "Healer," Ostreni breathed. "Yes. You came. I came. I was wrong about you." "I know." The old woman drank. It took a long time. Sonara held her head and tipped the cup, drop by drop, and felt the herbs do what they did, which was not to cure, because nothing would cure her now, but to clear. To buy. To give a dying woman one last hour of clarity before her body gave out. By the time the cup was empty, Ostreni's eyes were open and focused. By the time Sonara lowered her gently back to the cot, the hall had gone very quiet. Sonara stood up. She turned to face the dais. "My lord," she said, "Lady Ostreni would like to make her statement now, before witnesses, while she still can." Edrin's face did not change, but Sonara saw it. The smallest tightening at the corner of his mouth. The smallest shift of his hand on the arm of the chair. He had not expected this. He had expected the old woman to slip into the long dark before she could speak. He had built the whole scene on it. She had taken his scene from him. "That is not what we are here for," Edrin said. "It is what I am here for." "Sonara of no house," he said softly. "You are very far from your cottage." "Yes, my lord." "You should have stayed there." "I know. It will be a short walk back, when this is finished." "Perhaps," He smiled. It was a very gentle smile. It did not reach his eyes. "Take her," he said, to the men along the walls. 3 of the Southern Abbey men stepped forward. Sonara did not move. She did not look at Vale. She did not need to. The bond was wide open between them now, and she could feel him gathering, the way a storm gathers, the way a great wave gathers, the leashed weight of him going taut at her back. She raised her voice. "Lady Ostreni," she said clearly. "Who poisoned the wine at the engagement banquet?" The hall held its breath. The old woman on the cot drew a long, thin breath of her own. "Lord Edrin of the Southern Abbeys," she said, in a voice that carried somehow all the way to the gallery. "He paid the steward in the autumn. He paid the cellarmaster on the longest night. He sent the brewer back to the south with 20 pieces of silver in his purse and a knife in his back. I have the names. I have the dates. I have the receipts in a sealed box in the 3rd stone of the western chapel hearth, behind the cracked tile. They have my testimony in writing under 3 witnesses' seals. It is already on its way to the 4-pack alphas. It left my house the morning I drank the wine." The silence that followed was the loudest sound Sonara had ever heard. Edrin rose. "You old woman," he said. He was not smiling now. "Yes," Ostrene agreed. He moved fast. The Abbey men along the walls moved with him, and the 3 coming for Sonara broke into a run, and from the gallery above came the sudden clash of steel as Oren Halloran and his 6 outriders, who had not gone to the river postern at all, dropped down into the hall with 20 more wolves Vale had been quietly massing for a week. Vale moved last. He moved through the hall like weather. He did not shift. He did not need to. His hand closed on the front of Edrin's robe halfway up the dais and lifted his older brother off the floor and slammed him back into the chair that had been Vael's, and the Abbey men nearest the dais hesitated, just for a heartbeat, because some old animal part of every man in that room had recognized, finally, who the dominant wolf in it was. The heartbeat was enough. In the chaos that followed, Sonara heard Ostrene cough once, softly, and go still. She heard Oren shout an order. She heard wolves pour through the upper doors. She did not see the small silver knife come out of Edrin's sleeve until it was already moving. It was not aimed at Vale. It was aimed at her belly. She felt it before she saw it. The bond rang inside her like a struck bell. She turned. She raised her arm. She felt the blade go through the heavy fur of Oren's cloak and into the meat of her forearm, deep, all the way to the bone, and she felt the wolfsbane on it begin, immediately, to burn. She felt her knees go. She heard Vael make a sound that was not a sound. And then, as the floor came up to meet her and the great hall began to tilt sideways, she felt the thing inside her belly, the small, fierce thing she had been carrying for 4 months, 2 of them now. 2 small, bright presences that had been waiting and waiting and waiting opened their eyes. The hall filled with light. It was not her light. It was theirs. The light came up out of her. It did not feel like power. It felt like waking. Sonara was on her hands and knees on the cold stone of the dais. The silver knife was still in her arm. The wolfsbane had begun its work. A black, creeping cold that ran from the wound up toward her shoulder, and she should have been losing consciousness. By every healer's reckoning she had ever made, she should have been beginning to die. She was not dying. The light had wrapped itself around the cold, black line as it climbed her arm and was, very gently, eating it. She watched, distantly, as the black retreated. As the wolfsbane that should have stopped her heart simply stopped, suspended, held in place by something soft and bright and not hers. She felt the small, fierce attention of 2 presences inside her belly, both of them awake, both of them turned toward the wound, both of them doing this without knowing yet that they were doing anything at all. "Mother," she heard. Not in words, in a feeling. 2 of them. Slightly different. One brighter, one steadier. "I am here," she thought back. "I am here. Stay with me. Stay with me, my loves." Stay with me. The black retreated all the way back to the wound and stopped. Sonara raised her head. The hall had gone still around her. The abbey men nearest the dais had stopped where they stood, weapons half raised, and they were staring at her, not at Vielle. Their faces had gone slack with the particular stupidity that comes over men when something happens that their training has not prepared them for. Behind them, Orin and his wolves had reached the dais steps and stopped, because the dais was now full of light, and the light had made the whole hall strange. Vale was on his knees beside her. He had Idrin by the throat. He had not noticed. He was looking at her, only at her, and she had never seen his face do what it was doing now. It was open. All the careful weights and counterweights of a king's face had simply fallen off it, and what was left was a man. "Sonara," he whispered. "I am all right. You are glowing. It is not me." His eyes dropped to her belly. They went very wide. "Oh," he said. "Yes." "Oh." She laughed. It came out choked and wet, but it came out. "Help me up." He did. He had to use only one arm because the other was still locked at the throat of his older brother, who had gone very pale and very still in his grip, and was watching Sonara with an expression she could not read. Vielle lifted her to her feet as though she weighed nothing. He kept her against his side. He did not look away from her, even now, even with the kingdom's traitor in his other hand. She turned her face to Edren. "My lord," she said quietly. "Sonara of no house," he said. "I am not of no house anymore?" "No," he agreed in a voice that had gone almost gentle. "I see that." The light around her belly pulsed once, softly, and dimmed. Not gone. Banked. The way a fire banks for the night, alive under its ash, ready to be woken again. She lifted her wounded arm. The wolfsbane line had retreated to a faint gray shadow around the wound, no longer climbing, no longer killing. She set her teeth and pulled the blade out in one motion. The pain was clean and simple. The blood that came after it was red, not black. She handed the knife, hilt first, to Vielle. "This is yours," she said. "I think." Vielle took it. He did not look at it. He looked at Idran. "Brother," he said. "Yes." "Why?" The hall was very quiet. Idran was silent for a long moment. Then, with what dignity a man can keep when he is being held off the floor by his throat, he said, "Because I was 4 years old when I learned that I had been born into the wrong half of a story. By the laws our great-grandfather wrote, the keep was mine. The kingdom was mine. The council put a crown on the wrong head, and they sent me to a southern abbey to read books about it for 15 years, and you came twice a year and brought me more books. And I loved you, brother. I want you to know that. I loved you. And I still took the chance when it came. You poisoned my counselor. Yes. You burned my keep. Yes. You raised a knife to my wife and unborn children." Edrin's eyes closed. "Yes," he said. "I am not going to kill you," Vale said. Edrin's eyes opened. He looked for the first time, surprised. "You are not," he said. "No. Why?" "Because if I kill you," Vielle said, "I am the kind of man who kills his older brother in a great hall in front of his wife. I have decided I am not going to be that kind of man tonight." He set Edrin down. He did not let go of his throat. "You will go to the 4-pack alphas. You will give yourself up to their judgment. You will be tried under the laws you spent 15 years studying, and you will accept what they decide, whatever it is. Do you understand me, Edrin?" "Yes." "Say it." "I understand you, brother." Val let go of his throat. Edrin did not run. He did not draw another knife. He simply stood, where Val had set him down, with his head bowed, while Orin's wolves came up the dais and took him by the arms and led him out of the hall. Sonara watched him go. She had heard what he had said, the thing about the wrong half of the story, and she understood in a small, clear, cold place inside herself that he had not been entirely lying. There was a shape of truth in him, a wound that was real. None of it excused what he had done. All of it had to be witnessed anyway. When the doors closed behind him, she turned her face into Vial's chest and let go. He held her for a long time. The hall around them began, slowly, to come back to itself. Oren gave orders in a low voice. Wounded wolves were carried out. The Southern Abbey men, leaderless and stunned, laid down their weapons one by one and were taken to the lower cells. At some point, Sonara realized that someone was calling her name. It was coming from the cot at the foot of the dais. She lifted her head. Lady Ostreni was still alive. Sonara crossed the dais and knelt beside her. The old woman's eyes were open. They were very clear. "Healer," Ostren whispered. "My lady. I am going. I know. Tell him." Her hand fluttered. Sonara took it. "Tell him I am sorry. For the letter. For the 4 months. For all of it. He knows. Tell him anyway." "I will." Ostreni's fingers tightened. "And tell my niece. The little one. In the south. Tell her the Karin lands go to her now. The papers are with the Alphas. She is not to be afraid." "I will tell her." "Good." The old woman's eyes closed. They opened once more. Looked with a kind of wonder at Sonara's belly. "2. Yes. Good," Ostrene said again. And then, very softly, "Good." She did not speak again. Sonara held her hand until it cooled. The bond was finished that night. Val would not have it in a hall that still smelled of smoke and wolfsbane and a counselor's death. He took her up the long stair to the king's chamber, the chamber she had walked out of 4 months ago, and he closed the door behind them. She came to him. She put her hand on his chest. The mark beneath her own collarbone, the half-finished mark, was burning steadily, not with pain anymore, with readiness. "You are sure," he said. "I am sure. Sonara, once it is done, it is done. Even death will not undo it. Vial. Yes. Stop talking." He laughed once, a small startled laugh, and bent his head to her, and bared his throat in the old way she had read about and never thought to see. She rose on her toes. She set her mouth where his pulse beat hardest. She felt him shudder once, all the way through. She set her teeth. She bit. The bond did not explode. The bond settled. It was the difference between a window thrown open in a storm and a door closed at last against the cold. Everything that had been pouring through the half-open mark for 4 months stopped pouring, and instead simply was, a steady warmth between them, a steady knowledge, his heart in her chest and hers in his thought reaching for hers and finding it, hers reaching for his and finding it home. She tasted his blood, and she tasted, underneath it, every promise he had ever made her, every promise he had ever kept, and the one he had been trying to keep on the night she walked away. She lowered herself. He was crying. She was crying. He pressed his forehead to hers and said her name. Once, and she said his. Once. And they did not say anything else for a long time. Outside, somewhere in the keep, a wolf began to howl. Then another, then another. By the time the sound reached the king's chamber, it was every wolf in the keep at once, and beyond the keep, every wolf in the valley, and beyond the valley, on a frequency Sonara could only just feel. Every wolf of every allied pack in the 4 corners of the reaches, all of them at once, lifting their voices because their alpha had been broken open for 4 months and was finally whole again. She and Vale stood inside the sound and held each other and did not speak. The trial of Edran of the Southern Abbeys was held 3 weeks after the keep was retaken. The 4-pack alphas heard Lady Ostreni's testimony, which she had committed to writing on the morning she drank the wine. They heard the witnesses from the keep. They heard the Abbey men, who, in the way of men whose leader has fallen, told everything they knew the moment they were asked. They did not take Edran's life. They sent him back to the Southern Abbey under permanent watch, with the order that he was never again to leave its walls. Vale had spoken in his brother's defense at the trial, briefly, awkwardly, about a small boy who had once shared a tutor with him in a sunny room in the same keep. The Alphas had listened. They had not been moved. But they had been, perhaps, informed. Sonara visited him once before the twins were born. She rode south with two of Oren's wolves and a small green satchel, and she sat across a wooden table from her husband's elder brother in a stone room with one high window. She set the satchel on the table. She gave him 3 books of healing lore, a pressed sprig of silvercress from the cliffs at Coldreach, a small clay cup, the kind a man might use to drink water in a quiet room. He looked at the cup for a long time. "Why?" he said. "Because I do not want to be the kind of woman who lets her husband's brother go thirsty in a stone room," she said. He bowed his head. She left him the cup. She did not visit again. But every spring, on the equinox, a small parcel went south from Marrow Keep, and a small parcel came back, and what was in the parcels was their own business. The twins were born on the night of the first autumn frost. The boy came first. He was small and dark and silent, and he opened his eyes the moment his father lifted him, and his eyes were already amber. He was named Arvin, after a small bright star that the old wolves had used to navigate by in the days before maps. The girl came second. She was smaller still, and not silent at all, and she came into the world with her fists already up. By the end of her first moon, her eyes had gone the same impossible silver gold as the light her mother had glowed with on the floor of the great hall. She was named Lyrien, after the first wolf in the old songs to choose her own name. Sonara held them both against her chest and watched her husband watch them, and, she thought, with a clarity that surprised her, I almost did not let this happen. She thought of the desk in the king's chamber, the ring, the 2 letters, the one she had left and the one she had taken, the 4 months of cottage and salt and the small bird on the windowsill. She thought, I almost walked away from this for the rest of my life because I thought I was saving him. She did not say it. She did not have to. Vale had felt the thought go through her, and he reached across the bed and took her hand and pressed his mouth to her knuckles, and she felt his answer come back through the bond, simple and complete. And I almost let you. Never again. Never again. Outside the chamber window, the autumn storm broke open and washed the keep clean. In the courtyard below, where the abbey banner had once flown, the wolf and crescent had been put back at the top of the pole. The rain came down hard for an hour and then softened, and then stopped, and a clean, pale dawn came up over the eastern ridge. In the cottage at Coldreach, an old headwoman opened her door to feed her chickens and found, on her step, a small wrapped parcel that had not been there the night before. Inside was a length of fine wool the color of cream, a sealed letter in a hand the headwoman had seen only once, and a small pressed flower of the kind that grew on the cliffs in late spring. The letter said only, "Thank you for the name. We have given it to a small wren-gray kitchen cat who already runs the keep. Come and visit us when the snow breaks. Bring your goat. He is invited." The headwoman read the letter twice. Then she folded it carefully and put it inside her dress against her heart, and went on with her morning, smiling at nothing. In the great hall of Marrow Keep, 2 small cradles had been placed near the hearth. The fire burned low and steady. The king of the Hollow Reaches was asleep in a chair beside them, with one hand on each cradle, and his queen slept against his shoulder, and the bond between them, finished now, ran quiet and warm and unbroken between their 2 chests, and would, until the long end of their long lives, never again be silent. Outside, the wolves were quiet. They did not need to howl. Their king was home. Their queen was home. Their heirs were home. And the night, for the first time in a long time, kept its own counsel.